today's webinar featuring Cizzle Brands. I'm going to be your host, Nicole Sienna, joined here by CEO John Celenza and Head of Corporate Development, Setti Coscarella. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So they're both going to be sharing us the corporate deck today. For those of you watching live, keep in mind we do have a Q&A portion at the end, so you can put any of your questions in the chat that's on the side of your screen today. Once the guys are finished with their presentation, we'll hop back on and go through some of those for you. Before we begin, I would like to disclose that I am a shareholder of Cizzle Brands. This is purely for transparency purposes and does not affect any of the objectivity of the info you're going to hear today. So that being said, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'll see you guys at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Nicole. We are also shareholders of Cizzle Brands, so appreciate that. My name's Setti Coscarella. I have John Celenza here as well. He'll be going through the deck, and we'll be happy to take questions at the end on sort of anything that comes up either through this presentation or, just some general questions you might have had in advance. So with that, I'll hand it over to John, and off we'll go. So just some forward-looking statements.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join today. Cizzle Brands, health and wellness company, doing things the right way. What do I mean by that? We're making better for you products that are actually good for people, that are tried and tested by the best athletes in the world, signed off by the best doctors, nutritionists, strength coaches, you name it, looking to take market share from the bigger brands. Long existing companies that still don't do things the right way. That's us in a nutshell. A lot of our executive team comes from a BioSteel background. That was a company that I previously co-founded. And what we've done with Cizzle Brands is we brought in some of the people that were around for the early days of that worked at the business until the acquisition of that brand. And we brought in some new healthy experts to help us along the way as well. So a lot of those initial team members are once again with us for this venture. So in taking a house of brands approach from our previous experiences, the first one through the tracks is Quench. So Quench is our sports hydration product that comes in a ready-to-drink format, which I have in front of me here, as well as in a powder format. Andy O'Brien, who is Sidney Crosby, and Nathan McKinnon, who's featured here as strength coach, longtime performance coach actually since they were teenagers, traveled the world, met with over 100 different teams and organizations, their dietitians, their doctors, their trainers, everyone from Real Madrid to the LA Lakers, and talking to them about their hydration needs, products, what they were using, what they were finding, and that's how we came up with our formula. So a lot of R&D went behind that. Andrew Wiggins here featured on the screen, investor in the business, also an endorser who's involved in that product development as well, where we actually sweat tested our athletes in coming up with this formula. So best-in-class formula that features no sugar, no artificial flavors, 10 calories or less depending on the flavor. And obviously, as you can see here in the eco-friendly Tetra packaging, that's not only for the Nathan McKinnons or Adriano Leons of the world, but we can be shared by our kids as well. That child in particular is one of my cousins, actually. So in coming from the background that we do, very familiar with the hydration space, Prime, Moss, the new Messi drink, Body Armor, which just picked up the NHL deal, a lot of, I guess, newer entrants into the market than you can say over the last couple of years that have captured some serious market share. First and foremost, we have a far superior product. Our endorsement is not just from athletes, but from all the teams who are choosing to purchase our product, even though they're getting all the other products for free. And by the day, due to this product efficacy and word of mouth spreading so quickly, we are already elevating the game and picking up distribution by the day. So just in short here, a quick product run through, because maybe I said it fast the first thing. You have your ready to drink product. It comes in cases of 12s. You have your traditional tub with a scooper in it, 30 to 60 servings, depending on how you scoop it. And then we have our single serve sachets that come in the 10-count box across a variety of flavors. So depending on the retailer, you'll see these different SKUs in different places. So just going to dive in one more time into the efficacy of product, which is very important to us. Quench, obviously, with more electrolytes than any of our competitors, still being able to be sugar-free, preservative-free in the eco-friendly packaging, which is unique in the sports drink space. I've seen every insight study under the sun at this point in my career. Number one thing that comes up, I love that our product is best in class. I love that all the pro athletes are using it. But at the end of the day, number one thing that comes up in any insight studies is taste. And the taste of the product is phenomenal without the use of any artificial flavors or sweeteners. So I just wanted to get that across. Sometimes when people hear super healthy, they think it doesn't taste good. Our taste here is definitely best in class, to say the least. So just alluding to the buy-in for professional sports early on, again, these are teams and organizations that are cutting checks for the product as opposed to using all the free stuff they get from the league-wide sponsors. League-wide sponsors being the biggest players in the space, your Coca-Cola or Pepsi branded type products. So for us, it was important to dive into the community, in particular the grassroots community. So when you're speaking to millennial parents with Gen Alpha kids, it's an interesting mix because the child wants something cool that they're seeing on YouTube or Hockey Night in Canada or ESPN, something that they can gravitate to and something that they can identify to as it comes to a brand. They want to go to school and feel special while holding that bottle. And for the parents, they want their kids to be happy, but they don't. For the most part, they don't want them consuming crap, for lack of a better term. So what we've been able to do with Quench is we've really been able to get into that young consumer with our brand, our social media influence, but also give mom and dad something they can sign off on that it's actually good what they're putting into their bodies. And what's cool here is, a lot would happen with let's take Prime as an example, a brand that, was on fire with the Pauls endorsing it and the Mr. Beasts and all them of the world, was kids thought it was cool. But when mom and dad figured out what was in there was a massive crackdown on that. And then their coaches started cracking down as they played at higher levels, the schools, what have you. So, that's a prime example of something that was, you could kind of liken to, I don't know, Von Dutch hats, where it had a quick splash and a considerable fall from grace in a short amount of time here. So for us, we're definitely built to last. In North America, we have over 500 grassroots teams and growing by the day. And we're also really integrated into the dietitian and nutritionist community as well. So it's not our goal just to be selling to these Gen Z, Gen Alpha consumers, but to be a part of people's pantries as well, which we're finding is mom and dad are like, wow, my kids really want this, and it's great for me as well. So that early adoption has definitely helped our velocity so far for the shelves that we are on. So you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I found, even in dealing with the whole pool of investors that we've got, a number of them are actually pro athletes that play either in the NHL or overseas. And every time I ask them, I'm like, okay, guys, do you drink Gatorade or Prime or any of these products? And they're like, hell no. Regardless of whether they're actually endorsing the league or not, and they have to hold a bottle that says Body Armor, they're not drinking it. So I say, well, what do you guys drink? They're like, we drink what our trainers tell us to drink. Long gone are the days when you would see Doug Gilmore coming out of Maple Leaf Gardens with a cigarette in one hand and a Bud Light in the other. These guys are finely tuned machines, and they only consume the best-in-class products, which is why when we were developing this, we went to the best-in-class trainers like Andy O'Brien to help us formulate this product so it's something that athletes want to drink, not something that they get paid to drink. And that goes back to the previous slide. When you see all of those teams, they're buying product from us. There's no team on earth that can't get Gatorade for free. They don't drink it. They don't want it for free. They want products that they're actually going to consume that are going to assist in their performance. And that's what this is. And, kind of likening to that sort of ladies' feet stick thing, we make a product that's good enough for an athlete, but, great for individual kids to consume as well.
Am I allowed to answer questions as we're going here? Is that okay? Spencer had some questions. Is there any plan to make a pre-made protein drink? There is one in R&D, Spencer, to answer your question. I tried it Friday. How do your first 6 months of sales compare to first 6 months of BioSteel? That's a great question. Spencer, when we did BioSteel, we had $50,000 in the bank account. I think our first year of sales was 132,000, if I'm not mistaken. So first couple months here at Cizzle Brands, we're at almost 5 million in net sales. So completely different ballpark, bankrolled very differently, and obviously 15 years of experience helps with that. Can you spend a few minutes discussing the benefits of Celtic sea salt? So Hernan, what I'm going to do here, we'll keep flipping through the deck, and I'm going to come back to all the questions. But I will speak to Celtic sea salt and how it's best in class and definitely most bioavailable sodium source.
Really quick for everyone on the line, we will get to all the questions at the end. So John said you just keep going, and then we'll loop back around.
Okay. So these people on the screen, 6 of the top hockey-centric influencers on the planet, a total of 10 million plus followers. So when we were thinking of growing the brand and putting our plans together, one thing that we did take from the playbook of other brands was this growing YouTube community. The kids are really affected by these influencers. And when I was speaking with these 6 gentlemen, they wanted to stand behind something that they could actually be proud of, something that was actually good for people, not a bunch of sugar, not a PET bottle, so on and so forth. So their reach has been tremendous. They've been instrumental in growing the Quench brand in particular. They've gone above and beyond their duty. They're shareholders and option holders in the business as well. So anything that we have in writing in terms of how many posts a month, anything like that, has already been well exceeded and growing. They see the growth. They're excited about the growth. And it's also fun for them too. We had a pro hockey camp in Vail this past summer with the best NHL athletes in the world. I can't speak to who was there due to some of them endorse other brands and there's group licensing rules, but the six of these gentlemen were here and got to meet some of their favorite players and film some content with them, and it was a great time. So they definitely have a lot of sway when it comes to that Gen Alpha, Gen Z that I keep referring to. But they're in it for the right reasons, right? These guys could be endorsing anything under the sun, but they chose to come with us and help build this thing from the ground up. So I'm very thankful for that group. So from a sports marketing standpoint, field marketing, trade marketing, we picked up some essential tools, to growing the brand in the marketplace. So MVP Nathan McKinnon was an obvious choice. Andy O'Brien, our chief product formulator, chief performance officer, has been training Nate since he was a teenager. So the fact that he was a part of the making of these products and is arguably the best hockey player in the world speaks volumes about him coming onto the business. The Quench Center, the Toronto Marlies here in Toronto, are a flagship youth hockey organization. I'd say best in class, probably one of the best reputations in the world. So the arena that we chose to sponsor is their home arena, and it's also a total deal with Canland Sports that covers 17 different arenas across the country across North America that are selling Quench products. And the trade marketing, big part of our piece. Obviously, we have very controlled distribution right now. I mean, growing by the day, but we were very picky about who would first take on our products. So how you market your product in the trade, whether it's our influencers driving traffic to those stores or how we're merchandising with our POS, whether it's featuring Chippy, who's in that picture, or Nathan or Adrian or Leon. Our shelves are doing a great job of providing a home for our brand, so to speak, and it's definitely cutting through the clutter when people are walking in those stores. Go ahead.
One of the things that we wanted to focus on is this is how we actually create demand, right? So when we go out and do these grassroots programs and we get these 500 teams and you get the 15,000 kids that are now wearing patches on their jerseys, stickers on their helmet, branded water bottle, branded face towel, to really kind of hone all this stuff in. Then you go and do deals with places like, we call it the Quench Center, but Canland, where you have the product available at the pro shop and in the concession stands, in the vending machines, and that's the places where they live, work, and play, because these kids are playing hockey 5 to 7 days a week. And then you go and you layer on top, YouTube influencers that they relate to, guys like Coach Chippy. And then on top of that, you bring athletes that they look up to. So players like Nathan McKinnon. So when you kind of create this ecosystem, it becomes this recipe for success. And that's the way that we start and how we really start building this groundswell of demand. And as the parents then want to buy products for their kids, They then see that they want to consume it for themselves. And that's how we start growing into these mass chain accounts.
So the sports drink market is definitely a growing space globally. I mean, it's been growing. I've been in the business now 15 years, and we see year-over-year growth every day, which encouraging for us. Yes, the category is growing. Yes, our sales are growing, but something that's not in this slide that I want to touch on is when I'm thinking about the sports drink business globally, and one of our advantages is being in these Tetra Paks. You know, I remember negotiating a deal with Bayern Munich back in my previous life, and the only reason we were at the table was because Alphonso Davies and a bunch of the athletes on the team were consuming the product, but they wanted to be in the Tetra Pak. They wanted to move from PET. And I heard that across Europe, and I'm noticing that with a lot of the pro teams in California right now as well.
Absolutely.
When they're looking at sponsorships, they're kind of trying to get away from those partners in the PET bottle. And you're seeing it on the shelves where a lot of PET bottles are actually coming off the shelf simply because they're in PET. So not only is the category growing as a whole, but in particular, it's growing for the type of packaging that we have. And that packaging is considered innovation by a lot of the buyers in the space, and that's what they're looking for. So when you're looking at the product, and I know we touched on this early on, and maybe I'm just going to hit up Hernan's question here because he asked to talk about Celtic sea salt. I won't get into the whole science and experiment of it today, but what people need to realize is an ingredient isn't just an ingredient, right? Salt is not just salt, right? There's a difference between Celtic sea salt and the salt that some people put on their French fries.
Salt, yeah.
Exactly. There's a difference in the type of magnesium that we're sourcing and our competitors are sourcing. There's a difference in the type of potassium that we're sourcing and compared to the type of potassium our competitors are sourcing. What this referred to is bioavailability. So what that means is, in a nutshell, is that what you're putting in your body is actually working, and it's going in the right areas to get that work. It's digesting quickly and becoming actively available for you. So it's not always apples to apples when you're comparing, basic things like sodium. To Hernan's question there, we can move off the slide.
Yeah.
Tetra Pak, yeah, we've already touched on there. The innovation pipeline. So our protein products under the Quench brand, very similar to the sports drink, best in class. Protein has very much become a commodity these days. Let's face it, right? I mean, who doesn't have a protein shake in the morning? There's all kinds of brands providing different types of price points. At the end of the day, there's no magic here. It's just best in class ingredients, simple, no additives, no preservatives, giving you a clean protein. Right? I'm not going to pretend that we're solve some special experiment with our proteins, but I will tell you that they're absolute best in class ingredients, clean, NSF certified for sport. Spoken. So here we go. So Spoken. So our team, our community that Setti and I keep referring to, of these dietitians, these doctors, these strength coaches, who are they, right? So there's, I won't get into all of them, but there's Carl Bergstrom, who trains Steph Curry. There's Andy O'Brien, who trains Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon. Dave Lawrence, who trains Aiden Hutchinson, who's trying to come back for the Lions if they make it to the Super Bowl, that was leading the NFL in sacks, so on and so forth. Dietitians from everyone from the Golden State Warriors to LSU football. So we put everyone in a room and we said, okay, let's come up with the best supplement products in the world. And what excites me about this is, and don't get me wrong, these are super expensive, best in class, all NSF certified for sport. But what this does is this acts as not only do we have sales revenue coming from this, not only does this get us into the most prestigious locker rooms in the world, but it acts as an R&D pipeline, right? So let's go back a little bit here. So protein, back in the day, protein was for bodybuilders, and hey, is that associated with steroids? Now it's basically a commodity, right? Greens, is that for Popeye the Sailor Man to pop his spinach before he kicks into action? Boom, then there was the AG1 phenomenon. So we have products in this portfolio that could become mainstream products very, very, very quickly. Like I can tell you, our Sleep Builder product, for an example, is being consumed by the best athletes in the world. And don't just take our word for it. People are putting on their Apple watches, their Garmin watches, and that show the recovery on their sleep. The Oura rings, thank you, Setti. And the chart of green that shows the recovery when you're on our product as opposed to not is absolutely unbelievable, right? Our greens product, best in class. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, the AG1 phenomenon. It ended up being a hoax. There was just a bunch of ingredients in there that not enough of them actually did anything for you. So we've created a best in class product. It's already replaced that in the pro sports space.
Yeah.
And now we're
green, but that's about it.
It was green. That was about it. And we're looking to replace that now into the more mainstream audience space as well. So a very exciting line. US focused to start, a lot of B2B business with the US, we call them points of sweat, but you're more, not you're high-end gyms and more intimate training settings. So the Snack Stars brand is something that's ongoing in our R&D. Speaks to the spirit of Cizzle Brands. We want to provide better for you products, not only for our children, but for us as well. Still a little ways down the road, but something that we're working on daily on the R&D pipeline for sure. Financials. All right. Sid, if you want to talk to everybody.
Yeah. So when we take a look at how the business has actually performed over the last 6 months, so we've reported, our year end is July 31st. So we've reported Q4 from last year. We started sales in May, and we reported Q1, which is August, September, October. In those 2 quarters, we've generated $5 million in sales, and we've got a gross margin of 60%, which in this space is unheard of. I think it speaks to the value that the brand is able to maintain on shelf. It speaks to the pricing power that we have, and it speaks to just the great team in terms of sourcing the product and making sure that we're able to deliver this kind of a margin.
Can I add to something to that, Setti?
Absolutely.
So in my experience in this space, the biggest takeaways for me here is, listen, I've been at this 15 years. Our team's been at it just as long, if not longer. When you have relationships in this business and you've done right by people, you're going to get shelf space. But the ultimate test of a brand is, are you going to get velocity when you get on those shelves? And are you going to be able to uphold your everyday price point? So the most encouraging part that I've seen about our sales so far, because yes, we have those relationships, obviously, to get on the shelves based on our background, but the velocity in the retailers that we're in are staggering. And someone referred to that other company before that I co-founded. The velocity that we're seeing in the retailers right now are more than what I saw at the peak of that other brand when I was there, and I was there for the peak of it. So
what were the sales in that other brand?
We're not going to get into that, but the velocity is there, and it's not on discount sales. We're upholding our everyday price point, and we're selling at that. So when we take that data and we go present it to the next list of retailers that we want to be in, it doesn't matter what my relationship or not is, the data speaks to the truth. And they see that and they monitor it in the marketplace. So from all the sales, yes, great that we have millions of dollars in sales right away. That's awesome. But it's the quality of those sales that I really want to call out here that's most encouraging for me and the team as we go to expand our distribution here. Sorry, Sid.
No, so listen, I think that's perfect. When we take a look at the comps in the space, and I think this is important for people to understand, we haven't actually established what this is going to trade at yet. I mean, we've gone public. We went public on December 30th. I think it's been trading well over the last 10 days. But when you take a look at what the other competitors in the market space do, so if you look at the large guys like Coke, Pepsi, Pepper, they're going to trade in that sort of 3-4 times sales range, but they're monoliths. There's nothing Coca-Cola is going to do that's going to blow a quarter out of the water. They pay a dividend. They're effectively defensive stocks, and that's where they'll stay. Warren Buffett did great investing in Coca-Cola, and I think it can still continue to do so, but it's not going to be a big mover. When you look at the mid-stage guys like Celsius and Monster, right now they're trading in that 7-8 times sales range. However, when they were in their earlier growth phase, they were trading upwards of 20 times sales. When Celsius earlier last year, so around this time last year, was trading at about $100 a share, it was hitting high double-digit, sometimes triple-digit quarter-over-quarter growth. Now, their growth has stagnated, so their multiple has come down. When we take a look at where Cizzle, I think, should otherwise be, if you just take a look at our last 2 quarters, one of which was really only 2 months, but call it $5 million over 2 quarters. Forget growth. Annualize that, and you're at $10 million. I think conservatively, this should be trading at 10 times sales, if not greater. So for me, I would look at this and say the company ought to be worth, especially with a 60% gross margin, ought to be worth 100 plus million, and that's assuming no growth. I think we're going to have some growth, but just keep it as a flat line, and I still think that we're well undervalued.
As a point of comparison to that chart, just to add to Setti's point about the comparables, I remember sharing booths at trade shows with the Celsius team back in my previous days, and obviously we chose to sell that business, and they chose to go on and take it public. But the route to market they took is very, very similar to what we're doing now. Obviously, it's many years later, and there's different ways to go down the path, but their growth and how they did it, first being that kind of energy drink, not that we're an energy drink, but that energy drink into those exclusive points of distribution, the high-end gyms, all that, and then taking that to retail is very similar to the playbook that we're following. Obviously, with 15 years of learnings from that playbook, but it's interesting to see where they ended up, and the fact that we used to share a trade show booth together, and I saw the early days of that product. Okay, so Nicole, that brings us to the end of the deck. I think I've indirectly answered all the questions that were on the right in the chat, but happy to go wherever you want with this.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks everyone for putting your questions in the chat here. We have lots to get through. You guys did just mention you have about 60% gross margins. Can you talk to a little bit about what the average is for a CPG brand?
So that 60% now, I will disclose, as per IFRS accounting principles, that doesn't include outbound shipping. But even with outbound shipping, we're still about 40%. So the gold standard in our business is anything with a 4 in front of it. If you can be from 40 up, that is the complete gold standard when you're looking to the valuations that Setti was alluding to a couple minutes ago. I learned that from the team at Goldman Sachs New York, who are very schooled in the M&A space when it comes to beverage, CPG. And beverage in particular, on CPG. And so many companies struggle to be there in their 30s. So we've actually already made some very strategic moves when it comes to our outbound shipping via DSD network that we have here that we been testing out, and that's all I'm allowed to say about that. But we're very efficient in how we're getting our product to market for sure.
Okay, great. We do have a question from Manisha here. They said, I've seen the NSF certified sports stamp. Will you be pursuing the informed choice certification?
It's a tough one. So I'm a big supporter of informed choice, but what goes on in the space is informed choice is the gold standard in Europe, and that kind of gets into the endurance community a little bit here in North America, and NSF is the gold standard for professional sports. So right now we're just focused on NSF because our business is predominantly in North America, and that's the goal. You can't sell a product to the NHL or the NBA if it's not NSF certified for sport, and to the pro teams that we're selling to in Europe, they're fine with the NSF certified for sport as well. Now, I love informed choice because I believe the testing to be rigorous and full transparency. It's cheaper than NSF, but North America is currently governed by NSF certified for sport, so that's what we're going with.
Okay. Hopefully that answered your question there. You guys have a lot on the pipeline here, lots of R&D. How are you balancing and prioritizing R&D and expansion and distribution?
Yeah, it's only stuff that makes sense right now. So, we didn't want to put everything under one brand, right? But, if you imagine it as one brand, these are all products that we have homes for that we want to bring to life anyway. We're just doing it under different brands for less confusion in the space. Again, relying on our experience. When you're selling Quench to kids and families and being a part of people's pantries, if there was aminos plus ATB from Quench, that kind of confuses the consumer, right? So that's why we've come up with this house of brands approach to really differentiate between the product lines. But at the end of the day, it's still going into the same distribution streams, in the same warehouses, sold by the same salespeople, just under different brands to provide those points of distinctions for our consumers. So everything's still being done optimizing our SG&A and at economies of scale.
Okay, and I mean, speaking about your operations too, you have a lot of your packaging and your facilities in Buffalo and in Aurora, Ontario. How are you guys managing your operational costs?
Well, we have a very experienced ops team, 15 years of experience. We're very fortunate that some of our manufacturing partners are actually invested in the business early on. So we have, great payment terms, great ingredient sourcing. With an experienced team, one of the biggest things in this space, Nicole, is your demand planning, right? Mm-hmm. You need to get well ahead of that. It's three months if you want to replenish your SKUs, right? 4 months if it's net new, 3 months if you want to replenish, whether it's the Tetra or the powders, what have you. So you have to be on top of your demand planning. That takes great communication between your ops and sales department, and that's what we have here, right? So, we're playing it on the safe side, holding 6 months of inventory on hand right now for the most part. We could get that down to 4 months, but when you're in the early days here, where distribution is just coming up by the day, and it's a little harder to plan for, right? You want to keep that couple of extra months on hand for sure.
Okay. Pivoting a little bit to sustainability, you touched about your Tetra Paks a little bit earlier on, and you have one in your hand right there. Obviously, sustainability was something that was on your mind when you were figuring out the packaging. Do you guys have any outlooks or any thoughts on plastics, on sustainability? Why was this so important for you right out the gate?
Nicole, without getting into all the political issues about it, I'm going to give you two simple ones. One, my kids are coming home from school and talking to me about plastic bottles in the ocean. Right? Like I didn't learn that growing up in school, right? So it's that Gen Alpha consumer that's telling that to mom and dad. That hit home. And here's the other story I'll share with everyone. I walked into a plastic bottling plant about 4 months ago. My history's in Tetra. I've seen a couple, but we're looking at this place from a Tetra standpoint, let's just call it. And I don't know if anybody else on the call has ever walked into one of those plants, but it smells absolutely disgusting. It smells like burning tires the entire time you're in there. And the fact that that's what we're putting into our bodies when we're consuming PET bottles is crazy. And if you look into any of the research, the microplastics that are showing up in our bodies or in our kids, it's completely insane. So morally, it's not something we could stand, but all the research, all the insights shows that it's going towards eco-friendly packaging. So we want to be on the cusp of that, and we want to help educate people.
Well, hopefully, that does resonate with Gen Zs, Gen Alphas. That's a primary demographic for you. I was talking to some people in the office earlier when I was even younger. The marketing was so different, right? Like Disney resonated with me because I watched cartoons, Do you think that how you guys are marketing, especially with like Coach Chippy, that the goal is that people see Quench the same way that, they would have been excited to have Disney in their portfolios?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a brand that they can identify with. It's a brand that, we can be a part of. And to your point on Coach Chippy, granted, it's under a microscope right now, Nicole, but there's kids going to school right now, putting the Quench towel over their heads, drinking a Quench, pretending to be Coach Chippy.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's kids out there imitating Nathan McKinnon and, putting in a request to our info line for a Quench jersey so they can look like him in a certain ad. So, to your point about those Disney characters, those are aspirational characters in our lives when we were growing up, right? And, now these Chippies and Nathan McKinnons, saying them in the same breath, very different people, but, still both aspirational and something that people want to be a part of. So, yeah, Quench, we're trying to build an aspirational brand here for sure, and those characters help support that.
Okay.
For whatever it's worth, like my son, he's 11. He came home the other day, had a couple of friends over, three of his buddies. Every single one of them had their backpack decked out in Quench stickers.
Yeah, the kids want the Quench stickers on their helmets.
Like they want the brand.
We have Todd Herman, Nicole, who's Kobe Bryant's mental coach. He actually coined the whole Mambo mentality. We're doing a big series on that now. I was talking to him yesterday. He's a board advisor to us. And he said he's out in Kelowna, and he said to me, John, my daughter's friends come over the house, and I always quiz them. Do you want Prime? Do you want Body Armor? Do they want Quench? And right now you're batting 1,000, right? So I think that just speaks to the aspirational testament about those characters that you were touching on a little earlier.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to see, and you guys touched on it too, that you started grassroots. So, here in Ontario and all the other programs that you're running, I think it really does resonate at a younger age, and hopefully those parents see the value in it too with the rest of the marketing you've been doing. So, I think it's all good stuff for you guys. Another question that just came in too, more about the Tetra Paks, but does having the Tetra Pak already give you a competitive advantage if Trump/Kennedy make everyone switch to sustainable packaging? I know you didn't want to get too into the politics, but what are your thoughts?
Oh, that was very nice of Seb to send us a layup. Yes, it's a huge advantage. I mean, they're already pulling plastic bottles out of obviously pre-wildfires, but out of California, like our sales rep out there, Justin, he's calling me like, guys, this is crazy. They're pulling PET literally off the shelves here, right? Yeah. I'm talking, I don't know who's traveled to the West Coast anytime recently, but Air One Markets is like the gold standard of health and nutrition markets out there, and those are different places that it's occurring. So we're definitely ready to pounce, Sebastian, if that were to come into place.
Mm-hmm. What about the boomer market? Do you guys have any plans on kind of appealing to them a little bit more?
We're going to appeal to a certain type of boomer, and it's that boomer that wants to stay hip and wants to stay young, right? So, I mean, granted, most boomers still cut their lawns in Nike shoes, right? And that's just and that has nothing to do with them wanting to play one-on-one. That's just a testament to the brand. So, I think when you do create, the types of aspirational brands that we do with Quench, and the boomers want to see what's going on with the young folks still have you. I definitely think that we can appeal to that demographic. And at the end of the day, what's the number one interest of boomers right now, right? You can see it anywhere, is longevity.
Yep.
And when you're creating better for you products, especially post-COVID, right? Everybody dove into their health and wellness and wanting to live longer. So, those with the disposable income to do it, that want to get into, better for you hydration products. So I won't go too science deep, but I mean, as you get up there in age, you got to worry about different things like urinating properly and on a regular schedule. And it's even harder to get to sleep. So we definitely have products that appeal to them. But again, growing an aspirational brand that they'll hear about, and the efficacy of our products will hopefully be something that they want to spend their disposable income on as well. I mean, only if they want to live longer, though.
Well, hopefully. Another one from Sebastian here. With the company's current rate of growth, how quickly can you scale as purchase orders come in?
How quickly? Well, so with 6 months of inventory on hand, Sebastian, that's why we're doing it, right? We could be a little, more cutthroat with the cash, let's say, and hold a less inventory on hand, but we don't want to do that. So we're able to scale very quickly. I'd say 2 to 3 months of extra inventory on hand right now at all times, and we can turn that around in 90 days to make up for that 2 to 3 month gap. So you hit them with the 2 to 3 months that you have on hand. By the time they're out, your product's already made. And part of the the magic in having your manufacturers as investors in your business is they're vested to see you succeed, right? So definitely able to scale right now, Seb, as the orders come in.
Awesome. That is about all the questions that I have from our live chat today. Are there any final thoughts from either of you? Anything we didn't cover? Any last, thoughts for the people watching here live?
So I think 600 to 1,000 doors by the end of the quarter. We're good.
That's wishful thinking. Saying that's wishful thinking. If we do that, then you might have to redo the sales goals.
We'll see what we can do.
All right. If that's it for today, everyone, thank you so much for watching live. The replay will be available after we're done here today. So just keep an eye open on your emails. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go to the Cizzle website and make sure you're signed up for their email marketing. We will have the replay available online soon. So any other questions, the contact info will be available for you too. So we're happy to answer those offline too. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all soon.
Thanks, Nicole, and thank you to everyone that jumped on. Appreciate it.